Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. This is SVC Sports Weekly, your weekly audio program hosted by Mike Nosek and Dave Gage, who is in Florida. Hard week for Dave down in Florida. That's why we did not have the show up last night. Dave, how's the weather down there?
Oh, it's great. 84 degrees, sun shining. It's, down here recruiting a little bit and having a great time, so.
Sounds good. Say hi to those sandy beaches and sunny weather for me.
I hear the weather is pretty nice out there this week.
It could be sunnier and warmer, but hey, that's fall Vermont for you. So what are you going to do? Big week for SVC Athletics as we near championship week for the NECC. A lot of math being done over the weekend to figure out what certain teams needed to do in order to get into the conference playoffs. And some of those teams are getting pretty close. So let's jump right into it. We'll start with women's soccer. One win and one tie last week in their two conference matches. Moved to 3-3-1 on the conference. And all they need is a tie in their last two games. Wednesday they're taking on Bay Path, and then Saturday they finish up the regular season at Wheelock. So hopefully they can come away with a tie and get into the postseason.
Yeah, it would be great. 2 years in a row. If they clinch this week, it'd be 2 years in a row to make the playoffs. And for head coach Michael Zauza, both years that he's been there after a long drought in the program history, and now they're starting to return back to postseason play and getting the program where he wants it to go.
Yeah, like I mentioned, only one more tie would pretty much clinch a spot. They still have a chance mathematically to host the first round. They would need to win both games, and Regis College would have to lose both games. So it's still a possibility, and that would be nice. But as long as they're in, then they can, go on the road and do some damage and potentially get to the conference championship and bring home that banner. Last week, a 1-1 tie at Regis. Aaron Student, Jr., scoring the only goal in that match. She also scored twice against Daniel Webster in a 5-0 win at D. Webb. So big week for Aaron. Freshman keeper Liz Simonowitz also recording her second shutout. Unfortunately, head coach Michael Zauza got some bad news. Relayed that to me last night, that Simonowitz went down with a concussion and will be out for Wednesday's match, potentially longer. So now he's having to reach deeper into that bench. Do you think he's going to be able to figure out a lineup, even despite juggling the different personnel, to find a way to make it into the postseason and then win once they're there?
Yeah, I think the one thing that they've done well all year is to overcome, anything that has been thrown at them, and how many injuries that they've had time after time, and they still find ways to play well. Talking about the Regis game this weekend, Regis is a very, very good team, and they were without Jocelyn Ortega, one of their top players, and they still come away with a 1-1 tie, and they were up 1-0 in that game. So, he'll figure out a way. I'm sure he will. He's done a lot of things over the past 2 years to figure things out, and they got 2 games this week, but I'm sure they'll make it into the playoffs hopefully, and second time around with his team, they'll figure something out with adjustments, and I'm sure they'll be competing in the playoffs this year.
And I know yesterday in passing he mentioned penalty kicks, and once you're in the postseason, that's definitely a possibility. So if they can play a good defensive game, then maybe they can pull a 0-0 tie or a 1-1 tie through overtime, go to penalty kicks. And I know I don't really like winning or losing in that style, but it's a possibility. And again, if you play defense well enough, anything is possible.
Yeah, the whole penalty kick thing, I'm very biased against. My high school career ended on penalty kicks, and then in college, the greatest game we won was a 0-0 tie against Wesley my senior year when we were outplayed the entire game. So penalty kicks can go either way, but like you said, I'm sure they'll have a game plan, and maybe, Caitlin sneaks one in, or Aaron's been playing well. Maybe one of those girls sneaks a goal in, and then, they play defense and come up with a 1-0 win, or who knows how they'll get it done, but I'm sure they'll be prepared for it.
Absolutely. And again, the women's last home match will be here on Wednesday when they face Bay Path College at 3 p.m. Then they're on the road at Wheelock for a 1 p.m. match on Saturday. Men's soccer going to have their senior day and the pink out day on this Saturday, October 27th, when they host Newberry College at 1 p.m. They lost both matches last week, 2 conference matches, but they are still in the hunt. They still have a chance to squeeze into the playoffs. And as Tim Penrod mentioned, they have the potential to really do some damage if they can make it in.
Hey, we've talked for the past 4 weeks, it's do or die time, it's do or die time. Well, guess what? It's the last game. It is do or die time. And I think we've mentioned plenty of times that team does have a lot of potential to make a run. But, they got to win their last game. So wish them the best of luck with Newberry this week, and hopefully everything works out and they can make a run in the playoffs.
I don't have the exact math in front of me, but I know that they do need a lot of help from other teams, both winning and losing, so they're going to keep their eyes on those scores as the week progresses. And it could be a situation where come Saturday they are mathematically eliminated. Hopefully that's not the case, but as I mentioned, they do need some help from other teams, and hopefully those results favor the men's soccer team. Women's volleyball, 2-2 last week. 2 tough losses, both to NESCAC teams, including a very good Williams team who came up here. And despite them losing both of those games, I don't think it's really hindered their progress and slowed them down at all as they near the postseason. They played 2 really good teams, like you said, 2 NESCAC teams, and Williams was very good. And I think the biggest thing for them is it's preparing them for, like you said, the NCAAs and the conference tournament. And I think it was 2 very good games, even though they came up on the wrong end, but they responded very well, like they have all year. And they got a 3-0 victory at Newberry, a conference game, which was good for them. And then they also beat Clark 3-1 on Saturday. So I think they're where they need to be. A win this week, and they clinch the regular season playoff championship, and that means they host the playoffs. So I think they're going to be just fine. And hey, at the end of the day, they're 19-3, so you really can't complain about that. Exactly, and big week for them. Lots of action going on. Wednesday, they're here at Southern Vermont they're at Elms for 7 p.m. on Wednesday, and then they go to the Skidmore Invitational, which they face a lot of quality competition up there, taking on New Paltz State, Skidmore College, both on Friday night, and then on Saturday afternoon they take on Baruch and Union. So that's a good test, I think, getting them ready for the postseason. Then they come home and have to play their senior day at 1 p.m. on Sunday. So it's going to be a very busy weekend for them, lots of action. They'll probably be pretty tired. But if they do win one of those games, as you mentioned, they'll be hosting the semifinals and final match on next Friday and Saturday, respectively. So it would be nice to get that break. They won't have to play in the quarterfinal round and kind of rest up going into the postseason.
Oh, exactly. And one of the things that Josh and I had talked about last year when they won the conference and then went on to play Cortland in the NCAAs was for the last month of October, they really weren't challenged, and they went 3-0 in 51 straight matches, or 51 straight sets, excuse me. And, so they got to that Cortland game and they were challenged a little bit, whereas this year they're not going to run into that issue. Williams last week, Wesleyan, like you said, SUNY New Paltz, very good team this year, Skidmore, an NCAA team last year. So they're going to be challenged and ready to go come the postseason, and hopefully they take care of work this week in conference play and take care of work again in conference playoffs, and then, and hopefully it's back to the NCAA as they go.
As I mentioned last week, they went 2-2. Their only conference match being against Newberry at their tri-match. SVC won that match 3-0. A player to note, freshman Shilani Calliope had 6 service aces in that match. Not too bad. And then senior captain Danielle Heelis had a .468 hitting percentage on the week across those 4 matches. She had no errors against Williams, 2 errors against a tough Wesleyan team who was really bringing the block, which helped stop the Mountaineer offense. So, those 2 players doing exceptionally well. And as I mentioned, this week they're at Elms, and then they host Lesley University on Sunday, 1 p.m. for their senior day. be able to recognize and honor the hard work of members such as Danielle Healis, Alicia Manzo, Jessica Alvarez, and the senior group. So that should be fun. Make sure you all come out to see that and help congratulate those players. Cross country was off last week, but this week they got the NECC Championships down at Harkness Park in Connecticut. It's hosted by Wheelock College, but it's actually Mitchell College's home course. Do you feel like you're going to be able to run well on that kind of lower level course where they're used to these kind of hilly runs and, going through the mountains at most of their meets?
The last time when they were at Western New England, we talked about how it was a flat course, and, there are times we got better each week, and that's great to see, and I think that's the one thing about cross-country is you want to see better times every single week, and that's what our cross-country team has done, and, I think they'll be fine next week against Mitchell. I know they've competed against numerous conference teams throughout the season, and they've done well. So, hopefully they do well again next week and can come home with some hardware.
Absolutely, that'd be great to see. A lot of good young runners there. Hopefully they can necessarily end their season because they're going to be going to the NCAA regionals on November 12th. So, it's a good way to wrap up conference and hopefully prove that they've come a long way over the last handful of years, and they're definitely ready to compete. And as you mentioned, bring back that trophy or plaque. Well, Dave, can enjoy the sun down there. We will be talking with you and hope to have all of you tune in next week to SVC Sports Weekly, your Mountaineer radio program for everything Southern Vermont College Athletics. Go Mountaineers!